Let's just call the meeting to order at 6:04. And considering we do have a lot of ground to cover, it's always funny. You have these short meetings, right? We're gonna have a short meeting, and you have like one or two items, and then all of a sudden it's 3 and 4 and 5 and 6. And so here we are. Bill, just let me know when you're ready.
Joe, Al, can you hear me?
Gotcha.
Yes.
Sweet.
All right. Bill has successfully called in.
And now everyone has his phone number.
Uh-oh. It's going to be an issue.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So can I explain the first thing?
We're going to get feedback the whole time.
Yeah.
I'm going to get off the.
Yep.
He needs to get off the video.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I muted your
Yes.
video, so now you're much better.
Perfect. No feedback. Excellent. So jumping right into new business, we kind of have an either or. We have A, articles of agreement, amendment warning, or board motion to amend articles of agreement. And Bill, if you can speak to the what you found, which gave us the ability to actually make that motion as opposed to taking it to a vote on December 1st.
So in preparation for a warning, that's what this meeting was about, was to warn a December 1st meeting so that we could just have one vote on a pre-K through 12 budget for West River. We unearthed a very rare provision, 705N, which allows a board to simply make a motion to change the articles of agreement if, during the original vote in 2017, that particular article was not specified in the warning, but was only a part of the articles. And so the way the budget lays out currently, pre-K through 6 for all but Wyndham and 7 through 12 for everybody, is able to be modified by a simple motion and vote of the board rather than a warning of a special meeting and a vote of the electorate. So tonight the board needs to decide which way they want to go. The clerks are ready, but would be very excited not to have to hold the vote on December 1st. But that is for a decision for the board to make. And I have the motion available if that is the direction the board wants to go.
Well, I will certainly entertain that motion. It certainly seems to make sense. You get voter fatigue. It costs more money for us to do that. It seems to be a pretty simple decision. So if there's anybody out there willing to make that motion.
Oh, I will make that motion.
I'll second.
Right.
Okay, so here's the language. You ready? The voters in the West River Modified Unified District shall vote on a single pre-K-12 budget from 2021 onward.
That is my motion.
Second, Keegan?
Yes.
Any
Thank
discussion?
you for putting words in my mouth.
Joe and Keegan, you're the motion maker. If you want to go ahead and, you have any discussion on that?
I mean, I just think it makes sense to do it. It's been cumbersome to explain it. We've explained it every year on our budget, and it's caused confusion every year. And I think it's probably simpler to, as a board, make the decision and go forward with a single budget and explain that than it would be to go put this out to a warning and explain what we're actually voting on again to simplify it. Just simplify it and move forward. And, you know, the clerks will be happier, the voters will be happier. We don't need to go out for public opinion on this. It's been said, why do we split it artificially as a comment to us in meetings? So we're just responding to things we've already heard.
Thanks, Joe. Keegan would be next, but Howie, I saw your hand. If you have anything, Keegan.
I have got nothing, Joe.
You good? Okay. Howie?
So I'm curious how this affects Wyndham and so Wyndham will now be voting on the entire budget for the district, even the schools that we're not sending our kids to. Also, it was sort of understood that I wasn't to be speaking on matters that refer to the elementary schools, since Wyndham wasn't part of the elementary school district. But now, since Wyndham seems to be voting on the entire budget, how's that going to affect things?
So in terms of the vote, Wyndham makes up about 3% of the vote. So you're correct, Howie. You would get to vote, the citizens of Wyndham would get to vote on the pre-K through 12 budget rather than simply the 7 through 12 budget. And the reasoning behind that is simply that it is easier for the public to understand an entire pre-K through 12 budget than it is to split them. But you are correct that Wyndham would, in essence, be voting on the full pre-K through 12 budget, which would affect elementary schools. As for your second point, I don't know the answer to that. It is a discussion that we had when we first created the West River Education District, but it is not a specific line in the Articles of Agreement. It was just an understanding that as the budget was set up that way, that would be the best way to proceed. But the board can continue to have that discussion. I don't think it's really hindered the discussion in the past, but I think it's worthy of a future discussion. I'm happy to put that on the agenda as a meeting going forward.
I'm also curious, how does this affect Wyndham tax-wise? Because we're only supposed to...
Nothing changes for Wyndham tax-wise because Wyndham only pays their portion of the 7 through 12, which we still have to tell you what it is.
But we still have to break the budget out into a 7 through 12 portion for Wyndham.
It'll just be more understandable Wyndham will have to be billed accordingly, for the portion that Wyndham can't be billed for portions that are not operational. They have to be a portion, but I couldn't tell you exactly how that would work, Howie.
All right, and I'm also curious because there are parents in Wyndham who, even though Wyndham is a K through 6 school, there are certain parents that would prefer, since Leland and Gray is gone 6 through 12, to send their kids to 6th grade. Now, this year we worked it out as a swap, but in the future, since it's all going to be one budget and we're paying a percentage, could we then, if we opted to send certain 6th graders to Leland and Gray, just up our percentage to cover that? Does that open a possibility for that? I mean, I just want to know this for the Wyndham voters who may be listening in.
No, it's a great question, Howie. I think that possibility exists now. You can have an arrangement between 2 separate districts to have students move between those districts. That's just an agreement that would happen between districts. But the ability to vote on the budget doesn't preclude the necessity to have those agreements in place.
All right. Thank you very much.
You bet. Good questions. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Howie. Anybody else? Oh, sorry, Lindsay. There you are.
I just was wondering if anybody from the public that happens to be here has any opinions on it. I know we've heard in the past that the public seems to be pretty on board with this, and so I feel pretty comfortable making the decision to do this without a full public vote. But last chance, right? Anybody have anything to say about it?
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead, Dan.
Hey, I was just, for the members of the board, I was just wondering now if we went with this motion that we make an amendment, just the board make an amendment, are we setting a precedent for any other future changes in the Articles of Agreement down the road? Just wanted to throw that out there that somebody might, we might be all agreeance on this, but something might come up later down the road where the public may want, this will open up that we can make those decisions for those people that there may be a touchy subject down the road that they may not want us to do that, go public.
It's a great question.
So Dana, I would just say that the ability for the board to make this decision is in statute. It is not required for the board. The board always has the ability to have a vote on amending the Articles of Agreement. It's just you have the ability under this specific change to make the motion and the vote. You are not required to have a vote on this. And for future changes to the Articles of Agreement, we do the exact same thing. I would get the attorney to review the Articles of Agreement, review the statute at that time, whether it's now or in 3 years, and then we get an opinion about what the board could do.
All right. Anybody else?
Yeah, Al, are you watching hands? Because mine's been up for a while.
No, actually, sorry, Ken, I did not see your hand.
Okay.
I see a finger behind you.
You see a finger behind me? Yeah, there's a big,
Yeah,
that's a big number one. Anyway, I'm gonna go on what Dane is saying here, and right, because if it wasn't in the original 2 articles that we originally voted on, we have 17 articles. So this board can turn around and decide that they're going to close, for example, a school without a vote from the town. Yeah, Joe's shaking his head.
I know where you're going, Ken. I'm thinking.
I'm just saying if we're setting a precedence here. You might say, no, we're not going to pick and choose that battle because it's going to open up a can of worms. But do we want to set a precedence where we could possibly change the word that was given to the people when they originally voted on this?
Al, could I hop in there real quick?
Please, yes, thank you.
Sure. So Ken, just to answer your particular question about the school buildings, Articles 6, 7, and 14 are in the original warnings from 2014, which includes special funds, indebtedness, real and personal property, and the closing of school buildings. So those cannot be changed unless by public vote.
Bill, can you restate again why we are able to do this? Because I believe you said it was not part of the original article.
Articles 6, 7, and 14 were in the original vote on March 7th, 2016. And so those articles 6, 7, and 14, which involved special funds, indebtedness, real and personal property, and the closing of school buildings, can only be amended by a vote of the electorate. All other articles can be considered and to be amended by a vote of the board.
Thank you for the clarification, Bill.
No, these are great questions. I love it.
Absolutely. Thanks, Bill. Go ahead, Keegan.
Oh, I was just going to clarify that this particular motion that's on the floor is about combining the 2 budgets that currently exist separately into just combining them into one. I don't think we're having a broad conversation around the enumerated number of powers that the board may or may not have, depending upon what version of the articles and amendments that we're looking at. So I don't think we need to be overly cautious around making this decision. I think that this is specifically for the no longer separating out the two budgets and putting two budgets before the public where they can vote yes on one and vote the other one down. I think like the intention behind this motion is to alleviate that discrepancy that can happen and to streamline the budget passing process. Am I right?
Thanks, Keegan. Yeah, go ahead, Emily.
Just going to say, following up what Keegan said and what Bill said, what's really important to note here is that we're talking about making a decision based on a statute. And a statute that allows us to do this whether we like it or not, right? And so it doesn't really matter. We're not really setting a precedent because it is a statute. You see what I'm saying? We're not bending any rules. And I just want to make sure everybody understands that. People can complain about it and people can change statute, you know, through legislation, but I'm not worried about setting a precedent because that's not what we're doing right now. We're basing a decision on a statute, and that's just really important to remember.
That's a great point. Thank you. All right. Anybody else have anything before we take it to a vote? And if possible, everybody who is voting, could you put your video on? If possible. If not, then I'll just accept reaction thumbs.
Al, can I say one more thing?
Please.
I just want to also say that because it's based on statute, it can be changed back as well. If this doesn't work, there's an issue, it can be changed back.
Great point. Statute not set in stone. Yes. All right, I got Trish. Mike, hopefully you're feeling better today. There he is.
Yes,
Great.
I am.
Howie, did you have another before we go to?
Yeah, I just want to say I'm going to vote against this, not to be a pain in the neck, but it seems that since we have to break out the budget for tax purposes anyway, it's not like we can just, this is going to make that part go away. I think it's a good idea to present separate budgets to the voters so they have an idea of where their money's going, which portion is going to the high school and which portion is going to the local town schools. So that's why I'm going to be voting to not change this from the way it is.
Okay, thanks, Howie. Fair enough. All right, so given that, knowing that, we'll do a roll call instead. So I'll just go around. Emily, did you have something?
I do. Sorry. I actually, Howie just made me think about this. I mean, clearly we have to separate these budgets anyway because, you know, they're different. I mean, we can vote to approve them, but we do have to have separate for assessment, taxation. Will voters who vote on the budget, I pretty much know the answer to this, but I'm asking you, Bill, will voters be able to see the breakout budget that is assessed to Wyndham?
Well, you will see what is assessed to Wyndham, but you have to remember that the 7 to 12 budget is artificial because there is no natural break. The natural break would be 6 to 12.
Right. But that's true today as well.
Absolutely. It's true today.
So we're not talking about a big change from what voters are able to see from today to after if we make this decision.
Well, Howie makes a good point. I mean, we're not going to present a budget that's K-6 and 7 to 12 artificially separated. We're going to present a pre-K to 12 budget. But what Howie's pointing out is to make sure that Wyndham gets assessed properly in that environment, as well as having you're going to have the normal detail you'd have under a pre-K through 12 budget. Mm-hmm. But you're going to see, you know, costs for Leland and Gray are not going to be broken out into 1/7 slice.
Okay.
Like this only charged to 6th grade, and you know it'll be a Leland and Gray cost.
Okay. Good question, Howie.
Any other questions? All right. So Dana, we'll start with you. All right, thanks. Ken? Ken, you can hear me? Ken's frozen. Okay, we'll come back to Ken. Keegan?
Yes.
Lindsay? Okay, there we go. That works. Yo.
Aye.
Oh, it worked, yes, sorry.
Emily?
Yes.
Howie?
Nay.
Leanne?
Yes.
Trish?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And back to you, Ken.
Nay.
Nay. Okay, so we have, did anybody get the count on that? 1, 2, 6, 8. I think I have 8 in favor and 2 no's. Does that sound correct, Bob? Bob? Bill?
Who was the other nay besides Howie?
Ken?
Okay, got it. Yep, that sounds right.
Okay, 8-2, motion carries. Thank you. All right, moving on to new business. Leland and Gray first semester schedule recommendation.
Luckily, we've got Mr. Tebow. I believe he is driving, but
Oh.
I'm here, if you can hear me okay.
Sounds good.
You
so
guys
Bob
hear me?
has. Go ahead, Al. I'll be quiet.
No, I was just saying, go ahead, Bob.
You guys can hear me okay, right?
Yep, good.
All right. So you have a document, I believe, that Bill sent you last week, outlining basically what I talked about last Monday, and just some rationale behind some of the thinking around having the middle school start, basically, which assuming the building will be ready right after the first winter holiday, right when New Year's is, and then waiting for the high school to restart when the semester break happens later in the month, so that we can have some continuity of instructional approach, at least through the end of that semester, and then things will get switched up. So that was the basic pitch, and again, it all depends on the building and the readiness, but I wanted to pitch that to you guys and then see if you had any questions or thoughts.
All right. Anybody have any questions, thoughts? Good plan? Yeah? All right.
Won't know until it's done. We're in it.
Very, very true. You're right. Bob, I'm seeing a lot of nodding heads in agreement. So,
So yeah, I guess if you, I don't know if it requires a vote or not, but I would love to be able to communicate to students and families that is the plan, especially as adopted by or voted on by the board, and then we can move ahead with our planning, and then people kind of know, based on the building reopens, that will be, if everything works as we expect, that would be what we would do.
yeah, I mean, I'll entertain. Go ahead, Ken. Did you have something before that?
Yeah, I do. We might want to look at, because I made that motion at the last meeting for going back 1 week after being after a holiday week, and I'm wondering if we should change that to 2 weeks due to the fact of after 1 week you can come back with a test. Not everybody's going to get tested. Come back, and are we going to be overwhelming our staff to be in person and remote at the same time to make sure everybody's covered?
Ken, I think that's a good point, but I think, I don't know if Bob was going to say this, but let's maybe just address this first and then we'll come back to that.
Well, if you modify, if you have a motion around this one that includes some language around, not to supersede whatever district decisions are made for all schools, then this decision could, if you decide to do something globally after winter break, then this decision would just flow in after that. You know what I mean?
I would just not recommend not starting to write something until the meeting's over, Bob.
Sure. That's you guys' prerogative for sure.
Yeah, so Ken, what you were talking about essentially would only impact Jamaica and Newbrook at this point. So yeah, since we're talking about Leland and Gray at the moment, maybe we can just work on this and then maybe that after.
Well,
Fair?
if we're going to, what I'm just saying is if we're going to wind up moving it from 1 week to 2 weeks and make a motion, and Bob's plan is to come back like a week after the break, it seems like it's counterproductive for him to say we're coming back a week after and the board decides no, we're coming back 2 weeks after. I just don't want to see a big mix-up, that's all.
Okay, I see what you're saying. And then I think Bob said that obviously the overarching would supersede that anyway, so that January 4th would become January 11th or whatever that 2 week time frame would be. I think, is that what you were alluding to, Bob?
Yeah, well, I thought you originally were talking about Thanksgiving. If you're also talking about the Christmas break, then maybe Ken is right. Maybe you should wait to decide that first. If you're just talking about Thanksgiving, then you don't need to. But like I said, you could also make the motion around, no dates. That the earliest date would be, after the New Year, but potentially could be longer based on other district-wide decisions or something like that.
Okay.
You don't want to box yourself in, is what Ken's saying, and I agree with him.
Okay, got it. Bill, can you address the 1 week? I know we made a decision for the reason that you could do the testing after a week, correct?
Yeah, no, I think Ken actually has a very perceptive thought because Thanksgiving is on a Thursday. So even if people traveled for Thanksgiving and left on that day and they needed to quarantine for 2 weeks, the week after Thanksgiving wouldn't be enough time because they would need to quarantine until the following Thursday. And then what I think Ken is pointing out is that if we set ourselves up in that way, then that means that week 2, you could have a dominant split of not only families, but also staff. And so if we're being proactive and thinking about the challenges around quarantining, it might make a lot more sense instead of just doing 1 week to do it as 2 weeks. I believe that's the point Ken is making, which I think makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely, that's it on the nose, Bill.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I would agree that I would keep these two separate. So maybe hold off on Bob's request, go ahead and take up Ken's request, and then in that environment of that request, if Bob wants to phrase out what he's looking for from the board, that might be the simplest way to do it.
Okay. So I'm just trying to remember from last week. So we made the motion to make it just 1 week last week. So we will make another motion to extend that to 2 weeks, correct? Is that what we're...
Yeah, so the West River schools will be fully remote the 2 weeks following the Thanksgiving break. It'll be the dates of November 30th through December 14th will be fully remote instruction in the West River schools, something of that nature.
Okay. Ken, would you like to make that motion?
I would like to make that motion, but I'm also wondering if we should add on to that and any other school holiday breaks until the end of COVID.
So a reminder, Ken, I think you actually made this point that it might be a good idea just to do this break and then to give yourself more time on November 16th at your next meeting to decide on the next break, because we might be hearing something from the state level, which might make that motion moot, or it might make that second motion necessary. But, you know, whatever way the board wants to play it, I'm good to go.
Well, reason being, I'm just worried about Bob sending something out. And then, you know, we were all worried about getting people's hopes up that school was going to start, and then it got, you know, postponed. And again, we're going to be doing the same thing if we don't, you know what I mean?
That is a good point.
I just want to have families prepared.
Yeah,
Well,
so
on those other dates, Ken, would be, so the first set of dates is November 30th through December 11th, fully remote. And the next pairing of dates is January 4th through January 15th, fully remote.
Okay, so I would like to make the motion to have 2 weeks of remote learning after the next two holiday breaks, which would be the 2 weeks following Thanksgiving, which would be the 11:30 till 12:11 of 20, and 1/5 of 21 to 1/15 of 21.
I'll second that.
I think it's was it 1/4 to 1/15?
I think you're right. I think it's 1/19.
1/4 to 1/15.
1/4 to 1/15. That's only 11 days.
Yeah, because you're starting on a Monday and you're ending on a Friday.
Oh, okay. Got it. Okay,
Dana,
1/4/21 to 1/15/21.
Perfect. Dana, was that your second?
I second that. Howie.
Oh, Howie, sorry. All right, discussion, starting with you, Ken, and then, sorry, it's motion makers.
Only other discussion I have on it is that if Bob needs to change his date, I would recommend he do so after this vote, if it passes.
Okay. Howie?
I think it's a great idea. I think we can't be proactive enough on this since absent good national leadership.
Thanks, Howie. Keegan?
So I'm looking at the school calendar and I agree. Creating the space where families can properly quarantine for those 14 days is important. But when we look at the calendar for December, if we're having families quarantine from November 30th through to like a return on December 14th, the kids are only going to be in the building for what? That Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and then they're on vacation the following week? Does it make sense?
Yeah, I believe it's 8 days. Yeah.
So I'm just curious about, you know, heating a building and getting all of that stuff going for the use of 8 days when they're going to be gone for 2 weeks, there for 1, and then gone until the middle of January. I'm just curious. I might be missing something, but it would seem to me that if you're going to have a huge block of time remote, back in person for a few days, and then remote again for an extended period of time, is that return to the building necessary? or should it just be remote the whole time? Just a question.
Fair point. Anybody else? I see Lindsay, and then I see Renee. Go ahead, Lindsay.
In response to Keegan's comment, I would just say that I think that the 2 weeks, while probably necessary after the holidays to do the quarantine period, I think it's going to be hard on families who have already had to do such a big workaround and have finally gotten kids back in school and maybe have a real work schedule again. And I think that if we can put kids in school safely, that we should, even if it's for 2 weeks. They've already will have been doing it. I think it's a little different to come in at the last 2 weeks of an entire semester than it is to just have a little bit of on again, off again as necessary.
Thanks, Lindsay. Go ahead, Renee.
I absolutely agree with Lindsay. I think that especially for the Newbrook students who just returned today, to not capitalize on the time that we have with them is going to be detrimental. There's kids that struggle with transitions, and if you really think about how long that break in between Thanksgiving and January, what was it, 15th? That's a good, 7 weeks that they will be out of school again. Yeah, so also I think we should trust our community to be able to do the things they need to do if they are traveling. I personally don't travel for Thanksgiving because the weather's always horrible. You always get stuck somewhere, but so my 2 cents.
Thanks, Renee. All right. Any other board members before we take a vote?
Yeah, I was just out, if I could.
Yes, sir.
I was just wondering, is there any chance that we could, like those who do want to travel, leave it specifically for them to stay out for 2 weeks? And those who don't travel, I mean, is there any way we could split that so those who don't travel could go back to school? Or is it just easy one for all?
Bill?
So that's the default. The default right now is that you self-identify that you traveled, that you self-quarantine, and that you, take it upon yourself to answer the questions correctly when you are coming to the school. So, for example, Dana, if you and your family traveled for Thanksgiving, we would, as Renee put, we would count on community involvement to say, hey, I left the state, I went to a red zone, I need to quarantine for those 2 weeks after Thanksgiving. I'm going to let the school know. I'm going to tell the school that I'm going to be a remote learner for those 2 weeks. I will not physically be in the building. But as you pointed out, Dana, anybody else could continue to be in person if we were operating in person. That is correct.
Go ahead, Lindsay.
If it were to be that we were asking families to be really forthright and claim that they traveled when they did, because of the current setup with remote learning versus in-person learning, would the students who would be forced into quarantine because of their family's travel history be doing a true remote learning, regular remote learning? Obviously they would at that Leland and Gray because everyone's remote learning, but would they at, say, Newbrook, where they've gone back to school, they're doing a school supported home study for the students who are not in the building? So if they have students that chose to be in the building, like, hey, we didn't travel, we want to go and be in school, those have the students then be doing regular school, but if your family traveled, you would be doing the school supported home study? Because you can't do true remote learning, right?
Yes, no. That's exactly how I would perceive it, Lindsay, is that we wouldn't create a third path. It would be you're in person for your 4 days. Wednesdays are remote. And if you are choosing to go remote because you have to because of quarantine, you would simply join the cohort of student-supported home study, which I think goes back to the original motion of Ken's point of are we creating more difficulty or not by having that. I don't think we can avoid that difficulty because you cannot stop people from traveling. We're just asking people to tell us that they are, and then this is the path that they take. It might be good to ask, I can't see the screen, but if you have a couple principals that are on about how difficult or challenging that might be, I think Pam is there. I don't know if Craig is on. He might be able to speak to that, and or Scotty.
Yeah, go ahead, Pam, if you want to.
Sure, I can talk a little bit to that, although I have such a small population. We have a couple students that are still on school-supported home study, and from time to time they will Zoom in with us synchronously at the same time as maybe a class meeting or a special, but for the most part, if they are remote, they are remote. So I would err on the side of if a family chose to travel and they have to stay home, we would meet with them typically on Wednesdays, and then deal with the in-person kiddos the other 4 days. With the caveat being that if they can attend certain things, we certainly would welcome them to attend, but we wouldn't plan on that, if that helps.
It does help, thanks. Go ahead, Bob, I hear your hands up.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of add one other complication to this. As you guys talk about people being in the building, I heard heating issues coming up and cost saving. One other thing that is out there, and we are waiting right now to hear from the state on, is winter sports. It is highly possible that winter sports will be allowable at some point, during or before or just after the winter break. Obviously, at Leland and Gray, we can't have them in the building until the building is cleared for that, for practicing. But just want folks to know that's another sort of ball in the air to consider. And one of the things that committee has talked a lot about is the time back from breaks, and a lot of concern around that. And the doctors on that committee spoke to us about the idea of how much time out is necessary, and and thinking about who's going to self-police, and what principals, ADs, and superintendents were saying to that group that I'm on is that it's in certain communities it's a real struggle to get people to self-police that, for what it's worth. And so I just wanted to put that out there too. But we don't know what the final answer will be from that committee, because the work has all gone to the governor and to Dr. Levine at this point, and it has not been released.
Thanks, Bob. Great information. I believe Katie Hazelton's hand is up.
Yes, I agree with Bill that we can't control who travels, but I feel like if you guys pass this motion, that you are encouraging families to travel 2 weeks remote afterwards, when the state is still clearly saying that we should not be traveling.
Thank you. Lindsay.
Apparently I have a lot to say about this one, sorry. So my thought at the moment is that I don't think that we as a board should be telling people specifically, hey, don't go see your family during Thanksgiving break or whatever. So I understand the need for some sort of allowance for the learning to still happen, because I don't think it's equivalent to say all of a sudden, I think it is a big difference for people to all of a sudden be thrown into the school supported home study when they've been doing full supported either through Zoom or in person. I think it's a really big difference to have us make no motions at all. Those people now have to quarantine in a school supported home study. I don't think that that's a jump that a lot of students would necessarily be successful with. That being said, I feel like providing 1 week where everybody goes remote, those students wouldn't be at a loss educationally because they will have the full remote Zoom learning to be able to do, that provides, it allows those families to still travel that feel the need to travel. It also allows those who aren't traveling and are making a conscious decision not to travel to not lose the extra week of in-person. I feel like 1 week with a test is allowing everybody a good medium. It's very easy to get, past all of the milestones to be back in person, and also the rest of the people will still have as much in-person learning. They've made those choices. So I personally think 1 week with a test is a better choice.
Thanks, Lindsay. I have Ken and then Joe.
Thank you, Al. May I point out that it's not just families traveling. You could have Uncle Bob come in from out of state, or your son come home from college, and you're not going to tell your son, no, you can't come home for Thanksgiving. And that person could be carrying, you don't know. So it's not just you traveling, it's also having somebody at the house. And let's face it, who's going to turn around and go, well, we didn't leave the state, but little Bobby, came home from college, but we don't have to, quarantine. So the 2 weeks is what we're doing is to make sure that we don't let any new cases into the buildings. And if you say 1 week and somebody shows up with symptoms after 10 days, then you're defeating the purpose. Everyone might as well just come back after the break and just call it a crapshoot. So that's the reason why we're doing it for 2 weeks. And it's not just people that are traveling. It's, we had 30 cases in the state yesterday. Does anybody know if they traveled out of state, had somebody come over, or it was their next door neighbor? You don't know.
All right, thanks, Ken.
That's why we're doing it.
Joe and then Emily.
Yeah, my comment was very similar to part of Ken's comments. In that, like when this first came to us, it was actually from Scotty, who was talking about having teachers with college-age children come home, and really it was going to be unavoidable staff possible contamination that this was really dealing with. We're talking about it from the point of view of the family difficulty, but this was actually brought up and proposed by staff because they were going to have college-age kids come home. Just wanted to point that side out.
Thanks, Joe. Emily?
So I'm struggling with this because I don't want to create a false sense of security for anyone. And we have no idea when Uncle Bob or son Ken comes home. Or you know what I'm saying? We don't have any control over that. So they could come a week after Thanksgiving and expose everybody. And then we are never going to be able to find an absolute safe environment that works for every single child throughout COVID until COVID is gone. So what I want to make sure is that we're looking at this sort of from the public health recommendation level and our administrative level first, so that we are meeting the needs of our kids in the best way we can and in the safest way we can. And those, as a school board, we're all going to have our own opinions about this. And I'm trying to stay home as absolutely much as I can, just like everybody else, I hope, is. And I'm telling my 89-year-old father that I hate to say this, but we're not going to get together for Thanksgiving. So I'm in agreement with the reason behind saying all this, but I don't want to create a false sense of security here. So for me, I want to make sure we're basing our decisions on recommendations from the health department, and then I want to talk to our administration and staff and see what their thoughts are on this, because I don't think we're going to ever be able to protect everyone. We have to just do our best, and kids do need to be able to, some children are going to really be hurt by long remote learning. So.
Thanks, Emma. All right. Does anybody else have anything? Joe, just let me know. Oh, sorry. I see it now.
Yeah.
Let's go with
Hannah Parker.
Hannah Parker, and then Dana.
Awesome. Thank you. I just wanted to bring up, and I appreciate all the discussions. I think it's super important for kids to be in school as much as they can. And I think it's super important to be keeping everyone as safe as we can. But, you know, teachers who are in the buildings working next to kids within 3 feet all day long don't have the freedom to go fully remote when we have kids in person. So I just want you to be thinking about the fact that, you know, I will have teenagers coming home from college during the Thanksgiving holiday, and I will be going in person and working at Newbrook. And it was an incredible experience to see kids in person there today. And I'm very grateful to have them back in the building. And I think we need to support them as best as we can. But I also think we absolutely need to be keeping in mind that there are people that don't have the remote option.
Thanks, Anna. Appreciate it. Dana?
Yeah, I just want to point out these, you know, if we go with the 1 week option with a test, these tests cost money. These cost money to these people. Well, with us requiring that, would we be on the hook for the cost of it? Because it would be a requirement from us. I mean, we're forcing people to make financial, you know, it might be a financial burden to do that. I also, you know, going the 2 weeks, it's hard on these kids. I've seen it in my own child. Going back to in-person has made a big difference. I really think this holidays, I wish I could cancel them because it's affecting their learning, and the big breaks and going back and forth, it's not going to do them well. I wish the board, you choose wisely in this decision. Yeah, not all kids can handle the test done. I'm sure my kid will not do well having a big swab shoved up her nose, tickling her brain. It's not pleasant. So don't want to traumatize these kids with this stuff. So please think about it.
I would just add that I would definitely not recommend that the board require the test. I think that is territory the board does not want to get into. It would be simply following the Vermont Department of Health that if you travel and if you choose to take a test, then that can be presented for a 7-day quarantine rather than 14. So Dana, very good point to bring up.
All right. Well, many varying opinions on this. I can't think of an issue where there are so many pluses and minuses to it. And really, you can't win. I don't think there's any way for us to win on this. On the one side, you have, have more in-person learning, but you have the folks that made a decision to travel, be penalized, and have, as Pam said, their education would not be nearly as good because you're going to have in-person for all the rest and not for that person that made that decision. So yeah, it's a very difficult decision. And I don't know if we are ready at this point to make a decision on Ken's motion. If there are no other questions, thoughts?
Can you repeat Ken's motion? Was that for the 2 weeks?
Yes.
Okay.
Ken's motion was to for the time periods of 11:30 to 12:14 for Thanksgiving holiday, and then 1:04 to 1:15 to be.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's changing what's already been done, which is the week after.
The week.
Right.
So we already have in place a week, and we're talking about now requiring 2 weeks.
Correct. And last week we had made no decision on the holiday break in January, so that part is new compared to last week. So, all right, Emily.
I'm curious about timing. The decision was made to do 1 week at the last meeting, and I was unable to make the last meeting, so I don't have the benefit of the conversation. I didn't have time to review it. But so we've made the decision at least already for the 1 week. We're asking to make it for the second week. Ken's adding on this extra holiday, and I think Ken's only added on Christmas holiday break, the winter holiday break. What's the decision needs to be made today on the first one. We don't have to make the second one, the second part of this right tonight. And I'm concerned about what we're noticing, and people have mentioned it. Ken, you mentioned it, the change that is happening right now in COVID and the number of cases. I really hate to lock ourselves in on something that we really don't know what it's going to look like. You know, I really want to be able to say to parents, this is the way it's going to be. And I think that was what Ken was trying to do, give everybody sort of a sense that here, now they'll know. But I really hate locking them in on that second one right yet. And I think, Bill, we could wait on that second decision. On the second holiday.
Yes, you could definitely wait, but you would need the motion to be amended.
I understand that, but I'm just trying to get a sense of trying to do what's right. This is just really hard, as Al said.
Oh, go ahead, Ken. Gotcha.
We are on an upswing right now, and this motion might be 100% mute because all the schools might wind up going back to remote learning anyway. We are at our highest point right now.
Well, since
last fall, before spring.
Since April.
Right. Right. So, you know, we're on the upswing like since the beginning, and who knows where it's going to go now, because now, and believe me, I'm hoping it just blows away, but it ain't going to happen. Reality is that we need tough times call for tough choices, and we have to make the choice. I would rather stand now and say, this is what we're going to do, knowing that if we don't do it, or by doing it, we won't have to say, little Johnny came down with it and we lost a student today. Okay. I don't want that to happen, or even, and it doesn't even have to go that far, but God forbid that should happen and we didn't make this choice.
But that's what I meant by a false sense of security. That's what worries me, that we think we're going to go to 2 weeks and we're going to tell people that won't happen, but we can't say that.
No, we're saying, what we're saying is we're doing we're doing what we can do after those breaks. It's up to the families to turn around and say, okay, well, we didn't leave, till the last day, so we might have to, we might have to quarantine for another 3 days and do it on their own.
Always up to the families.
But it's always up to the families. What we're doing is we're not giving anybody a choice to cheat the system.
All right. Thanks, Ken. And I would just also say, as we are in essence amending what we said last week and extending it to 2 weeks, and we're now doing it for the winter break, we could very easily just do the same thing on November 16th at our next meeting say, nope, 2 weeks is too long, and let's pull that back to the 1 week. So I think we have that flexibility. We're not locked in stone. All right. Any other questions? Comments,
Mike's got his
reactions?
hand up.
You got Mike.
Oh, I'm sorry. Jeez. Sorry, Mike.
Sure. I mean, I guess I'd throw my 2 cents in on this. I completely understand what Ken's saying, and I agree with him in a lot of that. But I'm also hearing a lot from families on how much this full remote is still affecting their kids. And that's what's making it really hard for me to make this decision because, obviously we're always trying to find the balance and to, and in a case like a pandemic, it's certainly reasonable to be as safe as we can be. But this one's even a tough one for me because I'm definitely struggling with it because I see both sides of it. And on the other hand, I say, a week is good enough for most. And, if we can, are we doing more good by putting kids back in school and helping families out? It's a tough one. That's all.
Thanks, Mike. Go ahead, Lindsay.
So I guess I don't feel like this is really anything new that I'm saying exactly, but a lot of what Emily said seemed to make a lot of sense to me in that I think that we are in a pandemic even when it's not a holiday. And I think it's really important that we are super clear with our expectations because those expectations exist all the time. It's not only because it's Thanksgiving that we expect you to quarantine if you travel. It's your cool uncle had a soccer game and you went to it. That's a choice your family made, but now because of that choice, you might have to quarantine. And I think that while it is because the Thanksgiving break in particular, a lot of families travel, and I think that we should understand that what is probably best educationally for kids is to have those kids who, because it is going to be a large number, those kids who travel would not be stuck with the school supported home study, which is fend for yourselves. We'll check in on Wednesday, but you got this. I think that's a huge thing to ask families to take on. And I think by giving them 1 week with a test, I think that's, like I said before, it's communicating really clear expectations of what we expect all the time from everybody, all the time. And because we understand this is a special situation, we will kind of meet that. I think giving 2 weeks is what Emily said, is going to provide that false sense of security to that maybe, the expectations of what's expected all the time that wouldn't necessarily be taken as seriously. I guess those are my thoughts.
Let's see. I've got Leanne and then Keegan. Go ahead, Leanne.
Trying. There we go. I'm just going in on this mostly to talk it out in my head because I have such mixed feelings on this subject, as I'm sure everyone does. I really feel that there needs to be some family accountability in a way on this, just as there is every other day in school. Lindsay's idea of a compromise with the 1 week fully remote, choose to get a test, to come back after that week if you've traveled. And if you're opting not to have a test, then that's the decision you've made. And you would have to quarantine another week and do the schooling on your own through the school supported home study. I mean, there's no good option, but that sort of is like the compromise in the issue, as best as I can tell. Just my 2 cents.
Thanks, Leanne. Go ahead, Keegan.
I was just wondering, the district I teach in, they sent out a poll for families and faculty members to see what were their holiday travel plans. I'm curious is there going to be enough interest in people leaving where this would need to be this depth of a conversation. If most folks are planning on staying home and telling, like, I haven't seen my parents since March. If there are some people that are making that decision to err on the side of caution, to be safe, to not go into red zones, or is this really a true topic for discussion where 90% of our faculty and 80% of the families in our communities are going to be going to a dangerous place to have dinner with family? I'm just curious, would it make sense to ask if it's even on the table for some people to have this plan? And I think likewise also, piggybacking on what Leanne had said, I'm struggling with this. Like, I want what is best for children first. I want what is best for our teachers first. I understand the inconveniences that come from families that have a remote experience with their kids. I teach 43 remote middle schoolers. I see that it is hard, but I also see that there are choices that are being made. So speaking to what Leanne had said, I do think that it's a fair place. If you want to extend it by a week, and if you get the test and it's negative, come back to school. If they're a remote, if they choose not to have the test, then that is their choice. You know, they also made the choice to leave the safety net of their communities too. But thinking also, I believe it was what Hannah had said, I don't think we should be putting our teachers in a position where they're having to do way more than is fair, and just to meet the needs of, well, this family or these families elected to make this decision, and now half of a classroom is coming back for in-person instruction, the other half is being remote. You're still putting teachers at risk as well. So I would be more curious, before I start worrying too much about all of the what ifs, is a large portion of our student population planning on leaving their homes during Thanksgiving vacation?
That's a good question. I don't think there's been any polling on that.
Do we have time to poll it?
Today is October 26th. I don't think we have anything.
Could
I
it
think
be
the only
possible?
possibility is November 23rd, but that's, yeah, we're cutting it way too. I'm sorry, November 16th. I think that's probably a little tight.
On that wavelength though, Al, a simple Google poll emailed to parents of students, could we generate that and then just reconvene next week to see what the results were? Or would you want to wait until a full board meeting to look at the results in depth?
Well, I mean, you're right. I think we could call a meeting for sure. It's a great thought. So
I think it's hard all the way around, and
It
we're all
is.
trying to do what's best. And for every opinion, there's, trying to keep people safe and trying to do what's best for kids. We know that kids learn best when they're in person, but we also know that everyone learns best when you're not sick.
Right. Very true. All right. I have some new folks here. We've got Beth Beatty, and then Ken, and then Beth Wells.
Yes, hi. I just wondered, so if you don't travel and you stay home during break time, are you still going to be required to take the test to come back to school after 7 days? I mean, because then I see the problem. Unfortunately, you're going to have some people that are not going to be truthful, and they're going to say, oh, I didn't travel anywhere, I'm not going to test. And I mean, I guess that's just the problem that happens. You got to hope that everybody's going to be honest about it. And then my second question would be, what about staff if they travel during that time? Then they assumingly would have to test after 7 days. Or they stay out for 2 weeks? And then how is that dealt with in the school?
Well, I believe you're correct. I mean, Bill can probably speak to this, but and you would definitely have to test in order to come back after the 7 days, or quarantine for 14 days. But with the motion that we have right now, Ken essentially removes all of that by having us be out for 2 weeks. So whether or not people travel or not, it would be a moot point.
Thank you.
Sure, you bet. Ken, go ahead, and then Beth Wells.
Actually, I'm going to let Beth Wells go first because her hand was up before mine.
Okay.
Thanks, Ken. Good eye. I can't put my video on because I have terrible service or whatever, internet. I guess my big question is, why is it that the state of Vermont can put tons of restrictions on people traveling to and from Vermont, but we as a district can't put restrictions and say, if you do X, Y, or Z, these are the repercussions? Why is it that we can't do that? And I mean, where I teach, teachers are not allowed to travel into an unsafe area. If you do, you don't come into work. I'm teaching in person right now, so I don't travel into yellow or red zones. So I guess it's just kind of mind-blowing that this discussion is happening, considering how diligent the whole state of Vermont has been in reacting to their response to COVID. And I don't understand why we can't, as a district, say, this is our response, these are our restrictions. You don't like it, then your kid has to be fully remote. You want to travel, you want to do all these things, then you have to be fully remote. That's the consequence. So we are all making, if we're deciding to have our kids, we want in-person learning for our children, then this is what we have to do. This is the sacrifice we have to do as a family. And if families choose not to do that, then don't send your kids. Do fully remote. End of story. We need to put our foot down as a district and say, these are the restrictions.
Thanks, Beth. And that is truly what's on the table. Ken, did you want to go? And then I've got Amy Powling.
Let Amy go.
Okay, thank you. I don't see Amy. Where are we?
Is it working?
Oh, there you go.
Oh, sorry.
Thanks, Amy.
So I'm kind of piggybacking on this travel versus quarantine question. So we have a lot of people who are traveling and obviously coming back, and that's a problem. But we also have people who are inviting people from other places for gatherings. And that's my question is, we're staying in Vermont, but if you have somebody come to your home from a quote quarantine county, where does that put you? And in addition to that, are we following the state guidelines in regards to parental custody? So for example, in my situation, my daughter, her father lives here, but he travels all around New England for work, for essential work. And she has to go, she goes to his home every weekend. And so therefore, if she's been exposed to somebody who's been in these red counties, do you see what I'm saying? Like, she goes there every weekend. I mean, are we following the state guidelines, or are we making up our own in regards to this? Because once we start school in person for Townsend, does that restrict her from going? Because she's been in contact with somebody who's been in these red counties all week, even though it's for essential work. So, those are two of my biggest questions, is how are we approaching that?
It's a great question, Amy. Bill, any thoughts on that? I can't see hands here.
Bill's
Can
hands up.
you hear me?
Yes, got you, Bill.
I can.
Okay, so answering Amy's question, yes, we are following the guidelines, and custodial travel between parents is considered an essential travel. So it doesn't make any difference if they are red counties or green counties. It is allowed. And then to Beth's point, that is our default, is to follow the guidelines. And the motion above and beyond the guidelines to require a quarantine period of remote only. But if that motion was not in existence, it would be simply asking families if they traveled, you need to quarantine. If we know that they have quarantined, the challenge is when they don't tell us that they traveled. But as long as everybody is honest, then we can control that.
Okay. Yeah, because we went, you know, personally 2.5 months without my daughter seeing her father because we didn't understand the guidelines fully. And we decided this is crazy. And then the guidelines came out. But then, you know, the other part of that is, like I said, with holidays and travel, we don't have anybody out of state, but a lot of people do that come and stay with us and stay with them. And so, like you said, it's all kind of on an honor system.
Yes, Amy, that's a really good point. In fact, the guidelines are very specific about that from the Vermont, that if you have somebody traveling to you outside of Vermont from a non-green county, that you are supposed to stay 6 feet apart from them and stay fully masked the entire visit. And if you don't, then you should be quarantining for 14 days and you should be informing the school of that.
Correct. So that was my concerns with the holidays coming up and stuff, is that there are going to be a lot of people that forget that, okay, we might be Vermonters and it's okay that we, you know, we don't want people coming in from red counties or yellow counties. However, we can travel and come back, and that's a very broad misconception. And then I've seen that a lot. So I just didn't know, you know, I know this whole thing is on an honor system. So I just wanted to know if the school district was going to be putting out their own guidelines or something for people to adhere by.
I think that we will remind people of the existing guideline, whatever the outcome of this vote is. But I think that's a really good point, Amy, is to make sure that people are constantly reminded of not only the school's responsibility, but the family's responsibility for us all working together as a community. So I will take that as a need that we need to communicate that out to our families, and we will do that on an ongoing basis. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amy. Let's see, I think I have Renee and then Ken.
Okay, my internet was unstable for a second. I just wanted to say, I think the Google poll is a great idea. I think the community and parents would really appreciate having some input or just giving some information about the holidays. And nope, don't touch, please. I just want to. Sorry, lost my train of thought there. And as a parent, and I would absolutely go and get a COVID test if it meant that my child could stay in school in person. So.
Thanks, Renee. All right, go ahead, Ken.
Okay, so cover all this up one more time. The reason we're making the motion is so that we're being proactive. Nobody has the chance to turn around and say, I didn't leave the state. Uncle Johnny didn't come in. Little Billy didn't come home from college. We're eliminating all that. Our main priority here is to keep the families and the kids safe. Because remember, we get one case, we have a classroom that could be possibly exposed. Okay, or depending on, you know, so this is the reason we're voting on this motion is to be proactive, to set the standard of, we know not everybody's going to be truthful. We live in a real world. Let's be realistic. Okay. Not everybody's going to be 100% truthful. Do we put other people at risk because of that? Not everybody can afford. We can't tell somebody they have to take a test to come back to school. If I believe Bill brought that up before, we cannot tell someone that they have to take a test to come back to school. And Bill can weigh in on that. And then after that, I'm just going to say, we have Emily. So then I'm sure somebody else will raise their hand. So we'll be on this for another hour. Go ahead.
Thanks, Emily. Go ahead, Emily.
Nothing against you, Emily, but I just noticed.
I take nothing personally, Ken. I guess I don't need to repeat what I said about any false sense of security, but when we're talking about communicating from our schools, whether it's through a poll or whether it's just stuff that, as Bill, you just talked about, sending things out to remind families and all that, we need to be also reminding people that right now, if you decide you need to go down to Greenfield, Franklin County, it's yellow now, and it's on the rise. And so we're fortunate here right now still to have a lot of green counties around us, but it's changing as we go. So I just want to make sure that we're very clear on what travel means. It is just not just Thanksgiving and Christmas. It's anytime. So I'll put that out there. And then I just want to ask Bill, could you just update us on what the other school districts in Wyndham Central are doing, the River Valleys and Marlboro, about this situation?
So to answer Ken's question, correct, we cannot force anybody to take a test, but if they do provide us the results of that test, we can take that into consideration and minimize the 14 days down to 7. And then to answer Emily's question, the other boards have not had this discussion. So they have not, they are defaulting to everybody is following whatever path they are currently on. I would suspect that this conversation would occur.
All right.
Amy's got
Thanks,
her
Bill.
hand up.
Amy?
Oh,
Sorry,
you guys
go
hear
ahead.
me? Oh.
Yes, sorry.
I just wanted to ring in and say thank you guys for being so proactive with all of this. Like, I really appreciate it. It's my first time on one of these meetings, so thank you guys for just really weighing all the options.
Thanks, Amy. Thanks for joining. Tell all your friends. We love company. All right. Am I seeing Joe? Go ahead and just tell me if there's anybody else. I don't want to miss anybody.
Oh, Beth Wells again.
All right.
I
Go
was
ahead,
like,
Beth.
oh, you're clear. Nope, that's it.
Go ahead, Beth.
Hi, sorry. Bill, while you're answering these questions, what currently are the restrictions for staff at Newbrook since they're back in person and Jamaica Village?
There are no restrictions are working.
Right. So like when I go to work, I have to fill out a Google form saying I don't have a fever, I haven't traveled, into a whatever zone. And if I answer yes to any of those, I don't go to work.
That is the same protocol across the entire state. Yes.
Okay.
And we do that at all of our schools.
Okay.
Yeah. No, great question.
All right. How's it looking out there, Joe? If anybody's wondering, like, Joe has control of the meeting, so I can't see the hands.
Amy's hand went up again.
Amy's hand?
Yep. Is that real?
Hi, Amy. Is that a new
Hi.
hand?
Hi, I was just wondering under what like circumstances do kids get sent home now? in-person school rather. What are the protocols for, okay, kids got to get sent home now? Is it stuffy nose? Like, what's happening? What's going on with that? My kid's in Townsend, so we have yet to be back in school. So I just don't know what that looks like.
I see Pam's open mic if you want to answer that, Pam.
Would you like me to answer that? Sure. If a student isn't feeling well, obviously we took their temperature before they came in. But if a student isn't feeling well, we isolate them from their classroom. Our isolation rooms are not ready yet, but we immediately move them from the classroom. We call the parent, and we also call the school nurse, and then the parent comes hopefully within an hour, and then, which has been the norm. We've only had 2. And then the school nurse interfaces with the parent. The child is kept home for 24 hours free of fever or any symptoms. If it's more than that, then the nurse will deal with the parent in terms of recommendations to see their primary care doctor. Does that help?
Yes, that was helpful. Thank you. I just didn't know what the deal was there.
Yep.
But there's currently no requirement to get a COVID test if a student's not feeling well.
There is no requirement from the school or the district to get a COVID test if the student is not feeling well.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? Wow. Okay. Well, if we can't say that this was not carefully considered and that everybody has been able to weigh in, and I think everybody is conflicted on this for sure, no matter how we vote. But I really appreciate everybody, both the board members as well as the public, for asking a lot of great questions. There is no 100% right answer on this, and I hope everybody understands we're just doing the best that we possibly can for the safety and the health and the education of the kids. So really appreciate everybody's conversation and discussion on this. Thank you. All right, so I believe we're probably going to need a roll call on this. So let me start with you, Dana.
I'll give the yes, regretfully, but I'll give it.
Okay. And Ken.
Yes, aye.
Keegan.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Lindsay.
No.
Joe.
Yes.
Emily.
I'm going to vote no, but I want to say just because I don't want to do the January one yet.
Okay. And Howie?
Aye.
Trish.
Yes.
Mike.
No.
Okay, and Leanne.
No.
Okay, am I missing anybody? Nope.
Yes,
All right.
Mr. Clausen.
Okay. My vote does not matter. It is currently 6 in favor, 4 against. So, Ken, your motion carries. And again, thank you, everyone. Yeah, that was very well thought of. It. Go ahead, Ken.
Now we can let Bob write whatever he wants to write to send out to families.
Yeah, Bob, if you're still on, would the only change to that be moving that January 4th date to January 11th?
That's what it sounds like to me. So after 2 full weeks, then the middle school would start, and then the semester break I still think would be a week or so or out from that. So that's when the high school would start. So that sounds like what you guys just did.
Okay. Great. All right, I'll entertain a motion to move on Bob's recommendation for reopening Leland and Gray.
So moved.
I have a second?
Second.
I'll second it.
Dana? Bill, anything else that needed to be stated in that motion? Did I miss anything? Or Bob? No? All right. Discussion. All right, I think we got all of our discussion out. Oh, I do have a member of the public.
Sorry, slow fingers, Al.
Sorry. Amy Powling, go ahead.
I hit the wrong button, I'm sorry.
Then you're good to go.
Oh, okay, you hit the wrong button. Okay, I thought you were trying to unmute yourself. All right, let's try to do this the easy way. Anybody who can, Mike, would you be able to just do a reaction if you can't go on screen?
I can come on screen.
Oh, you can, okay. All right, if everybody can just give me a thumbs up. Okay. All right, looks like we have thumbs up around the table. That'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 in favor, and none opposed. The motion carries. Thanks, Bob. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
All right, moving on to Townshend Elementary Specific Room Use Request. Do we have Greg on? Or anybody who wants to speak to it?
Yeah, I don't see Craig, so I can give a heads up on this. Can you hear me?
Yep, got you, Bill.
So keeping it short and simple. Basically, the Craig met with his principal advisory committee and met with his staff, and they would just like the board's permission to be able to bring in small groups of kids in ASHRAE rooms that have crossed the ASHRAE threshold. We don't have all the rooms at Townshend ready to go. We're still working, but we do have some rooms that are available, and so we would like to have the academic support team, the special educators, and the classroom teachers just to be able to make informed decisions about having small groups of students come into the building in only ASHRAE over the target rooms. We would like the board to give us that permission because that is, it's in that gray area of opening a school and not opening a school. And we wanted to be unbelievably transparent, but we wanted to have that tool for our pre-K teachers, our classroom teachers, our academic support teachers, and our special education teachers on a case-by-case basis.
Bill, do we know what areas of the school would it, or what grade levels would be?
I don't have the sheet in front of me, but it's a 40%, 40 or 50% of the 20 students are in the room. They were supposed to be there last Thursday and Friday. As you might have noticed, the focus on HVAC has increased dramatically in the Northeast. It is getting harder and harder to get service done as fast as we got it done in September. But no, I rooms out. I could just that they would only be the rooms that have crossed the threshold of the ASHRAE standards that have been measured.
Okay, and I think I caught that was 40 to 50% of the rooms, if I caught that correctly.
Yes.
Okay. Great. All right. Anybody have any questions? I think I see Dana.
I just want to make the motion.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
I want to make motion that we allow Craig, principal, Townsend Elementary, to allow these special circumstances happen, to allow these kids that need it to be able to come into school in person and get this, what they need.
And,
Does that sound right? Or
and to provide access for a limited amount of students in ASHRAE-approved rooms.
Thank you. It's a long sentence.
It is.
Yes.
Okay. Great. Anybody second that?
Be happy to.
Thanks, Joe. All right. Any discussion from the motion makers or others? No. All right. Well, we're gonna breeze right through this. We'll try to go again with a simple show of.
You got one hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Unless she's on the wrong button again. I don't know.
Amy, are you there?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yep, gotcha.
Yeah, so I think I just wanted to reiterate, I think what he was saying is the kids that need IEP and you know, help through the school systems get that first and foremost one-on-one contact in the school.
Thanks, Amy. Yeah, I was just reading off his letter. So, yeah, with the board's permission, we'd like to explore options that could provide us access for a limited amount of students in ASHRAE-approved rooms while the building remains closed for all students. And then the permission from the board would give us the ability to, or teachers, special educators, and counselors could meet with small groups of students or individuals, invite students and families into the school who have internet issues to complete work and join in with remote instruction, provide remediation to students we are concerned about either social, emotionally, and academically, ensure students are safe, happy, healthy, and getting proper instruction. So by Dana and making that motion and Joe seconding it, that gives Craig and staff the ability to do all of those things.
Beautiful.
Thanks, Amy. Let's see. I have Chris Jers.
Thanks. I was just going to say, it's not, you kind of read the letter, so that made sense, but it's not just for our IEP kids or struggling kids. It gives us the opportunity to bring small groups in that we're feeling staff, the teachers, Craig, need some individual attention or need some small group work. So thank you.
Thanks, Chris. All right, Joe, am I missing anybody? Nope.
Looks good. Board's clear.
All right, excellent. Let's try to go with the simple thumb. All those in favor say aye. Okay. That's 11-4, none opposed. Motion carries. Thank you to Craig. Chris, anybody else that I'm missing out there?
I think almost our whole staff is here, just so you know.
Oh, I am so sorry. Then everybody representing Townsend Elementary School, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, moving on to old business, approving the minutes of September 21st and October 19th meeting. I'll entertain that motion.
I'll make it for you.
Thanks, Joe.
I'll second.
Yeah. And discussion, Lindsay?
On the meeting from September 21, the minutes showed that neither Leanne nor myself were present at the meeting, and we both were present at the meeting and made comments in the minutes.
Wow. Okay. Any other corrections? No? All right. All those in favor of the amended minutes? All right, 11-4, none against. Thank you. Next, Communication Committee update. So I think this first piece is moot. Week after Thanksgiving remote. Well, you can speak to that if you want, Keegan.
Oh, that's okay. I think we've kind of talked about that piece enough, right?
Indeed. I think the point we probably want to talk about here in terms of that, the week after Thanksgiving remote, as well as the communications liaison work. Following up on what we discussed last week is how do we want to get this kind of communication out? Coming out of this meeting, will you have a little write-up on something like that about what we just approved?
So the last time we connected as a team, we were talking around some of the challenges of wanting to have accurate information available as quickly as possible without having to wait to share with the whole board. And Lindsay and I and Dana were thinking that until our communications liaison person is appointed and up and running the show, then in the meantime, it might be helpful for us to kind of like create that summary or to rely on the notes from the meeting, like just quick single line bullet point, and then just running that by both you and Bill to confirm that it's okay. We didn't think we would need to wait for like the full board to approve a communication that was going to be going out. We were thinking board chair and superintendent. And then we're still in the process of building what that communication hub system looks like. But as far as posting to the website goes, that would continue, as well as our social media current venues that we have, and a quick note to our town offices, just to have bulleted in case anyone happens to go there to get their information.
Gotcha. Okay. Billy, are you on right now? Yes, he is right there.
Yes,
yeah,
I am. Al.
Hey, there he is. So I think that would be fine, right? Just as long as it's, strictly something that would be out of the minutes anyway. I think the important point is not everybody would read the minutes, so it would be important to take out sound bites to get out to the the Facebook pages of the schools, and just kind of more broadly communicate. Again, not everybody's going to read the minutes, so that would be I think the best way to communicate that. And you wouldn't really be going outside of the scope of would generally be reported in the minutes anyway. Is that fair, Bill?
Yeah, I think that's actually a really good idea that you distill down. I'll send a copy of the Zoom as well to the members of the communications committee, and I'll send the copy of the minutes when they're ready. And so I think it's a really good idea to distill it down and get it out. But I agree with Keegan. If Keegan feels really good that she got 3 or 4 bullet points from tonight's meeting, she doesn't need to wait. She doesn't need to wait till the minutes are ready. She doesn't need to wait till, you know what I mean? I think that the board should give the communications committee that permission to go ahead and communicate out.
Thanks, Bill.
Thanks, Bill. Totally agree with that. Yeah, especially if it's just something that we've already said right here anyway. So we'll need to make a motion to allow for that.
I just think the board needs to be informed that communications committee is going to do that. I don't think there needs to be a motion.
Okay. All right, great. Excellent. Looking forward to that, Keegan. Appreciate it.
Of course.
And you have everything you need in terms of everybody's Facebook pages?
I have the Facebook pages list that has been updated so far. So I'll be sending out an email as well to the principals with the note like, hey, until we know how to post to your Facebook pages, like sharing with the building administrative assistant, I think would be like a helpful first step. And then once our communications liaison person is available, I would imagine that they would be able to kind of streamline that process where they can take the data, take the information, and then quickly disseminate and update everyone.
Perfect. Great. Excellent. And then sort of the other, so that's kind of like the short-term quick sound bites to folks in keeping everybody in the know for now. I know you'd also wanted to kind of have more of a retro look, kind of like how did we get here? Where did we come from? And all of that. Go ahead.
What we were hoping for is we're currently coming into fiscal year 22 budget season, and we know that there's lots of things going on. Last spring, we encountered a pandemic, a school closure, lots of unknowns, at the same time that we were talking about what all of our options would be for our long-term future planning of the school district. And we decided as a board that it would be more important and more timely to focus our efforts and conversations more around a COVID response to reopening of schools. We've started the school year, and we're now going to be headed into discussing budget times. We just didn't want to lose an opportunity to talk about the long-term planning process, like the work that had been done in the spring, what fiscal year 23 is going to look like, because those are going to be some pretty heavy conversations, lots of community involvement, and the more we can have, the sooner we can start the conversation and the more robust our conversations can be, I think the more satisfied our communities will be coming out of some of the hard conversations that are inevitably going to happen. So I'm thinking like long-term communication wise, as long as we don't lose sight that we should be talking about these things, we should be including like, how did we come to have this conversation in the first place? I think that would be beneficial for our community members to at least know the backstory for our new community members that are moving into the area, or folks that, like me, were kind of caught off guard when we only heard about like the tax rate being 19% and then starting to pay attention. I don't think we shouldn't wait until we have a scary moment to start having hard conversations. I think they should be part of the fabric that connects us all together so that we're all paddling in a common direction. That's just my thought. I mean, everyone has their own opinions on what our future conversations can look like, but I just don't want to lose an opportunity for that conversation.
Yeah, no, that absolutely sounds great. I kind of picture it as like, here we have these quick little sound bites, keeping everybody apprised day to day kind of thing. And then in the background, we have, something where it could be like maybe every month you have more broad definitions, as you're talking about, of what we've done, where we've been, what are we currently doing now. And then, yes, the budget discussion, the long-term planning, very important and much more involved. So yeah, great. Sounds like a good plan. Anybody else have any other questions, thoughts on where we're heading with communications? Oh, all right. So, Lori, if you're still on here, or actually you don't even need to be on here, approving the financials. Joe, I believe you and Trish have already looked at these pay orders.
Yes. Yeah, Terry, they send them to us every month with all the backup, and we review them both and sign off on the PDFs. So I would make the motion to approve pay orders 8, 9, 11, 15, 17, and 18. And I can give you amounts if you need them.
Yeah, sure. Might as well state the amount per pay order.
Okay. Okay. 8 is, do you want dates too?
Sure, date and amount, yeah.
Okay. Pay order number 8 is from August 10th, 2020 for $15,700. $667.42. 9 is also from August 10th and is for $94,467.03. 11 is from August 26th and is $3,206,000. I'm sorry. I read a comma, a period as a comma. It's for $3,206.57. Pay order 15 is from September 21st. It is for $401,447.45. Pay order 17 is from October 9th and is for $189.37. And pay order 18 is from October 19th and is for $375,260.29.
Do I have a second?
I'll
second.
Toss up. We'll give it to Mike. All those in favor? Any opposed? All those in favor? All right, 11-0, motion carries. Thank you, everybody gets paid. All right, let's see, moving on to C29 Equity Policy.
Okay, policy committee had met about this. Bill, the administration asked us to review it. I guess it's part of a statewide initiative on equity. It was just Keegan and I at the meeting, but Lindsay had emailed that she didn't have a problem with the policy as written. So I think it's clear to warn that policy.
I'll entertain a motion.
I make the motion to warn that policy, was it C29?
C29 Equity Policy.
Equity policy.
Keegan, you second?
Yes.
All right. All those in favor? Okay. None opposed. 11-0. Motion carries. Thank you. All right. I believe that brings us to executive session, and I will entertain a. Actually, before we do that, just wanted to point out next meetings we have. Let's see, October 28th. WCSU board budget meeting at 6 p.m. Our next meeting is on November 16th at 7 p.m. And we have a possible November 23rd informational meeting, Articles of Agreement, that is no longer in play. So just those two meetings upcoming. Okay, I will entertain a motion to enter into.
Al.
Sorry, go ahead, Bill.
I just wanted, I got the answer for Howie and I wanted to max rate for Wyndham. Is that okay? Could I just make a statement before we go?
Please.
Yeah, the calculation for how Wyndham pays the tax rate will not change whether you vote in split budgets or whether you vote in one budget. It will remain, Wyndham only pays the percentage of students that attend Leland and Gray. So wanted to make sure I got that answer for Howie.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks for tracking that down. All right. Anything else, Bill?
No, but since my internet is so bad, Joe and Trish, do you guys got this? Can I go?
Yeah, I'm okay.
So
all
I'll
right.
make a motion
Thank
to
you,
go
guys.
into executive session.
I'll second it.
All right. We are entering.
Everybody out, Al.